Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Cece Shia, and today I want to talk about something I've gotten a lot of questions about, which is how do you decide between pursuing your passion or pursuing stability?
Oops, and here's where I forget to tell you that if you prefer to read this essay instead, you can access the full essay and other bonus content over on my Substack, one of my true passions.
I think this is a very salient question for a lot of us in this world as we try to figure out how to have a life worth living, especially in this economy. We don't become adults at 18. We become adults when we first look back and forth between passion and stability and choose of our own volition stability. That moment when we acknowledge the full weight of responsibility in our lives is the severing between childhood and adulthood. For some, that tipping point occurs quite early. 4 years old, selling candy on the subway because you know that you have to help your parents earn money. You recognize your passion, your joy, means nothing if you don't have stability first. This tension, passion versus stability, has been one of the organizing principles of my life. For so much of my childhood, even though I had passions and joys that I wanted to explore, I inevitably always gave them up because my parents told me that there was no point in pursuing these superfluous things anymore in adulthood. So when I went to college, I majored in something that I didn't feel a lot of passion for, but I was told was very, very stable and a good major. I'm sure this quandary is relatable to many of you, especially if you are an immigrant or a child of immigrants, because isn't being human simply a continual tug of war between what you want to do and what you think you should do? One of the most common questions I get asked is exactly this: should I pursue my passion or should I pursue stability? I assume I get asked this because from the outside, it looks like I pursued both stability and passion. Stability because I went to law school and worked in big law for several years. Passion because I'm writing and creating content and God knows what else right now. I think people also ask me this question because they want me to validate their decision, whether it's to go to law school, to take that job in finance or consulting or tech, or otherwise pursue stability after college. There's this ingrained sense of, well, you did it, so that must have been right, right? Choosing the stable path, after all, is the path of least resistance. Working for a corporation and collecting your steady paycheck, contributing to your 401k, health insurance, or applying to grad school and doing what you've always been really good at, putting together a killer application and writing a good personal statement. Both of these are paths of least resistance because a lot of people, including yourself, have done those actual things before. Stable paths, by definition, are known paths. Predictable because so many have traversed those same paths before. There is a reason that law school applications are up 22.9% at ABA accredited schools right now. Periods of economic and social instability drive people to flock to career paths perceived as stable, such as law. When the world feels so uncertain, hiding out in grad school is as good of a plan as any. Respectable, too. No one will question why you're in law school the same way they might question if you work in retail, even if the goal of both is simply to wait out a tumultuous economic time. So it's always struck me as funny whenever I am perceived as a respectable person because I am a lawyer, because I went to Harvard Law School, because I personally feel like a coward for having gone to law school. It was an expensive coward's way out of this big life question of what was I going to do with my life. And because I didn't know, I decided to hide out in law school. But I could have hid by moving home and working in retail too. I was simply trying to escape my life. The only difference is one way of escaping is lauded by society, while the other would have been seen as a waste of my Yale degree. The truth is, I actually wish I hadn't pursued stability after college. I envy the people who pursued passion first. This isn't to say I regret law school or my life. It's what I did, and I do think it was the only choice I could have made at the time, given who I was and my insecurities. But it also wasn't the right choice for me. Not really, because I made the decision from a place of fear. I know it was made from fear because I stalk the careers of other people from college, which I wouldn't do unless I was envious of them, which I am, obviously. The same way I know that being a doctor wasn't the right career choice for me because I never look at my doctor friends or the other people in my class who became doctors and think to myself, oh my god, I wish that were me. I've said it before and I'll say it again, but if you have difficulties figuring out what you really desire out of life independently, it's good to pay attention to who and what you're jealous of, because jealousy can be very telling, and it's a lot easier to feel jealousy in your body than it is to figure out desire. There's this girl I went to college with, right? She pursued writing directly afterwards, And to me, her career is fabulous. Like, I foam at the mouth thinking about it, and if the devil came up to me and asked me for my firstborn child in exchange for her career, I would probably say yes. Like, I would be the villain in Rosemary's Baby. This girl from college, she has an MFA from a prestigious program, multiple novels, and one of them is being adapted into a TV series, which she is also co-writing. That's how I know that what she did after college would have been the right choice for me if I hadn't been so afraid, because I want her career so badly. I want it more than any other classmate's career, which is saying a lot because I also went to school with a crypto billionaire, the director of the Oregon Health Authority, and a socialite who's an influencer and an exec at an e-commerce platform, and also had her wedding at the Four Seasons where the second White Lotus was filmed. And I don't want any of their lives. Their lives are beautiful and I'm really happy for them. But apart from the financial security of it all, I don't really want their lives. I want this other girl's life. I want this other girl's career. And I know she's contemplated the more stable path of law too, because she depicts characters in her books who are lawyers at big law firms. And these characters in her books represent stability and tradition. So there's this weird mirror between passion and stability. Unless you're born wealthy and don't need to make that trade-off, there will always be this bizarre infinity mirror between the two. If you choose passion, you'll always wonder what stability was like. If you choose stability, you'll always wonder what passion was like. Because here's this girl that I am so jealous of, right? And she, in her art, also is looking at big law attorneys. And here I am looking back at her. Which brings us to the central question. How do you pick between passion and stability? I talk about this a lot with my self-employed friends. We're all pursuing more on the passion end of the spectrum right now, but we often kick around this question of when do we call it quits? After 5 years, when we hit 40, when we have kids and start needing to save for their Yale tuitions, which will be God knows how much by then. But at the same time, the world is full of stories of people who never quit. Adam Scott was 49 when Severance premiered, which makes it seem like part of the strategy of succeeding in non-traditional career paths is simply to outlast everyone, staying consistent as others drop off. But do I dare keep hacking away at my dreams for another 15 years until I'm 49? It feels like an insane gambling addiction. If I wait just a little bit longer, diamond hands, then all of a sudden I'll make it. But that's also the definition of insanity, or crypto schemes, if you will. Continuing to do the same thing and expecting different results. Let's first look at the case for stability. Besides pleasing your immigrant parents, there is a real case for pursuing stability, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You've probably heard of this. It was developed by an American psychologist named Abraham Maslow way back in 1943 and is frequently shown in this pyramid structure, with different layers of human needs built upon each other. On the bottom are physiological needs, biological requirements to stay alive, like food, air, water, shelter, clothing, sleep, then going to safety needs, like physical and financial security and having safety nets, and then love and belonging, your social needs, esteem, and self-actualization at the top. The reason my parents and I clashed so much about passion versus stability growing up is because we were approaching my life from different tiers of Maslow's hierarchy. They were obsessed with safety needs, this bottom to last run, because these were the things they didn't have growing up in China, came to the US to find. Meanwhile, growing up in the US, I did feel like I had a safety net in my parents. Well, sort of, as long as I got straight A's and wasn't gay, more on that another time. But because I didn't have to worry about events like the Cultural Revolution taking away all of my physiological and safety needs, I could primarily focus my life on the upper 3 tiers, love and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization, which are arguably the passion tiers, whereas physiological needs and safety needs, the bottom 2 tiers, are stability tiers. And the thing about stability tiers is that you do need them in order to get to the passion tiers. You can certainly find love and connection during war, but man, is it so much harder. But don't take my immigrant parents' words for it. The writer Elizabeth Gilbert writes in Big Magic about the importance of making sure that you have stability that's free from your passions. She kept her quote-unquote day job even when she became a published author, and only became a full-time writer after her blockbuster bestseller, Eat, Pray, Love, came out. She says, "In fact, I didn't quit my day job, or my day jobs, I should say, until I had already written 3 books, and those 3 books were all published by major houses and were all reviewed nicely in the New York Times. One of them had even been nominated for a National Book Award. From an outside perspective, it might have looked like I'd already made it. It wasn't until my fourth book, and that book was freaking Eat, Pray, Love, for heaven's sake, that I finally allowed myself to quit all other work and become nothing other than a writer of books. I held on to those other sources of income for so long because I never wanted to burden my writing with the responsibility of paying for my life. I knew better than to ask this of my writing because over the years I have watched so many other people murder their creativity by demanding that their art pay the bills. I've seen artists drive themselves broke and crazy because of this insistence that they are not legitimate creators unless they can exclusively live off of their creativity. And when their creativity fails them, meaning doesn't pay the rent, they descend into resentment, anxiety, or even bankruptcy. Worst of all, they quit creating at all. And I think she does have a good point. Putting so much pressure on your passions does make it likely that you'll strangle your own passions. Instead of laying your own independent foundations for the stability tiers of Maslow's hierarchy, you're trying to pour all your hopes for stability into the esteem tier, which is a lot of volume and a lot of weight for not that much surface area. That can get really heavy, but there is something to be said for pursuing passion first. The actor Steven Yeun, one of my favorites, was originally pre-med in college, majoring in psychology with a concentration in neuroscience because his parents wanted him to become a doctor. But then he discovered acting freshman year. When Yeun told his parents that he wanted to pursue acting instead of pursue medicine, his parents didn't take it super well. His dad thought that his hope of seeing his son live a comfortable life was essentially dashed. But still, they were supportive, and this is the part that I'm always a little jealous of. And they told Yuan to move to LA for 2 years and try really pursuing acting for 2 years. And lo and behold, 6 months in Hollywood and he gets his breakout role in The Walking Dead. I think about that a lot. What if I tried pursuing my passion first and they'd worked out? Wouldn't I be years into living my dream career right now? Have many more years of working in my dream career to go? Instead, I find myself in my mid-30s, not sure what to tell people when they ask me what I do for work, and the only stable thing I can do that people would pay me a lot of money for, I don't want to do. The other good thing about pursuing your passion first, you have so much more time to develop your passion in your craft. Since I've stepped away from law, I've taken writing classes, read so many more books, done all these things that I wish I would have had time to do over the past decade, when I was instead developing legal skills and reading judicial opinions. At the time, I didn't recognize the opportunity cost of being in law school and practicing law. It taught me tons of new skills, which is great, but it also took away from my time to work on the skills that I wanted to develop. This is true for networking and connections too. The earlier you are in an industry, the more time you have to make connections, meet people. The loneliest part of leaving my corporate job was all of a sudden feeling alone. I didn't know any other writers. I just knew a bunch of lawyers who were nice, but couldn't connect with me anymore on the emotional travails of trying to pursue a creative life. Ideally, though, you could have both passion and stability. Dead Poets Society had it right.
Medicine, law, business, engineering, these are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. But poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we stay alive for.
Having both passion and stability sounds nice, but there are two major problems in modern life which makes it really difficult to have both at the same time. First, we live in an era of greedy work. That's what social scientists call professions like finance, law, and consulting, which pay employees disproportionately for essentially 24/7 availability. Greedy professions seek exclusive and undivided loyalty, which is why it is rare for big law associates and people in finance to also pursue things like content creation. Pursuing both at the same time breaks this unspoken tenet of exclusive and undivided loyalty. Greedy professions will suck up as much time as you have, and they incentivize you to do so through the increased returns the longer you work. These jobs are good though, because they do provide stability, but they over-index on providing you with physiological and safety needs, while not leaving that much time for the other tiers. This is the state I found myself in when I was contemplating leaving law firm life. I never thought I would get to this place, but I did. I no longer wanted more money. I wanted more time. The other modern problem I've seen is that working in a greedy profession and earning a lot of money doesn't really help one's feelings of financial stability, even as the objective stability of one's bank accounts is bolstered. Okay, but this isn't a modern problem. The Roman philosopher Cicero wrote about a king, Dionysius, who was Well, obviously rich. He was a king. One of the men in Dionysius's court was named Damocles. And Damocles would compliment Dionysius all the time about how great, wealthy, and rich he was. Surely, said Damocles, there had never been a happier man. Dionysius then asked Damocles if he wanted to try living his life for a day. Freaky Friday, but make it 1st century BC. At first, it was great. Damocles got to sit on the throne, got to enjoy a royal feast. But then Dionysius hung a sword over the throne, held by only a single hair of a horse's tail. This overhanging sword signified Dionysius's own anxiety about his fortune, always having to watch over it to ward off dangers from those who would try to take it from him. The Sword of Damocles also exists in modern day. A 2011 article in The Atlantic reviewed a rare survey of the ultra-wealthy. The average net worth of respondents was $78 million, and found that most respondents didn't consider themselves to be financially secure, even though they had tens of millions of dollars. Most cited that they needed 25% more wealth in order to feel financially secure. One of the survey's administrators said, "Sometimes I think that the only people in this country who worry more about money than the poor are the very wealthy. They worry about losing it, they worry about how it's invested, they worry about the effect it's going to have. And as the zeros increase, the dilemmas get bigger." So yes, mo money, mo problems. Even a psych study supports that. And if you're still doubtful, just take a look at the tech billionaires, Elon, Bezos, Zuck, and ask yourself whether you'd actually want to live their lives. Do they seem happy to you, fulfilled, self-actualized? To me, they're just living examples of the hedonic treadmill, how getting something will always mean that you acclimate to whatever you get, and all of a sudden you feel this great emptiness inside again. Does this perfect job exist then that would allow one to perfectly balance passion and stability? Can you have a bounded job, whether that's a 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, that also leaves you with adequate time to explore your passions and your interests outside of work? If you have a job like that, then please drop it in the comments below, because I would absolutely love to work a job like that. And I think I have one more graduate degree in me. Probably not medicine. In fact, definitely not medicine, but I could go to grad school one more time. Otherwise, it seems that the only way to balance passion and stability in modern life is to seek seasonality rather than balance. Because of greedy professions and the rising cost of living, it's really difficult to have balance on a day-to-day level. But if you zoom out enough, through several years, even a decade, it's possible. I admit that's what I did. I pursued stability for, 8-9 years. And even though I try to do little things to pursue my passions, like I had a blog back in 2016, I never wrote in it because I didn't have time. And I always ended up prioritizing the steps that would lead to stability rather than passion. But now I'm in my season of passion, which isn't to say that I am 100% passion all the time. I tried living on a creative income for a year to see how it was, and I hated it. The inconsistency of brand deals and AdSense drove me crazy, especially compared to the stability of being an employee attorney. I began to feel what Elizabeth Gilbert talks about, that the economics of being alive was murdering my creativity, my passion. And then I stumbled into an opportunity to practice law again, but instead of this time as an employee for someone else, through my own firm. That allowed me to inject some stability into my season of passion. Instead of practicing law for 180 or 200 hours per month, I now practice law for between 30 and 50 hours, and use the rest of my time to pursue my passion, writing and storytelling. Is this perfect, my dream life? No, but it's pretty good for now, and a marked improvement from when I never pursued anything I was passionate about in the first place. Could you do the reverse though? Pursue passion and then switch into stability? Absolutely. It's honestly what I wish I would have done. Because not only would I have had more time to live my dream career had it worked out like Stephen Nguyen, but I was also able to grind it out a lot more in my 20s, and my friends were poorer back then. Now that I'm in my 30s, I find that I just don't want to pull all-nighters in the same way that I was willing to when I was younger. To be honest, that makes me feel guilty sometimes, like I'm not doing enough. And if I were younger, I'd be able to devote way more hours to pursuing my dreams. And now some of my friends are like rich, which makes planning trips and outings with them more financially complicated than when we were all broke in our 20s. And those are the moments when I think to myself, Cece, you idiot, if you had just stayed in your stable job, then vacationing with your friends would be so much financially easier. But then I'd mostly be living from expensive vacation to expensive vacation and feeling dead in between, and I don't really know if that's a life for me either. I also do wonder if I'd pursued passion first and stability later, if I would have had a better perspective going into work. Because I never made any space in my adult life for things I enjoyed, I never knew how to have fun or draw proper boundaries in a greedy profession like law. And maybe if I'd pursued passion first, or even taken time off between undergrad and law school, which I recommend everyone do, I wouldn't have applied the same intensity that I had for school to work. So yes, I'm telling you that I do kind of wish that I'd pursued passion first and then stability later, especially for something like law school, where law school will always be there. But if pursuing passion over stability right now feels too scary for you, like you're going to cry just thinking about it, then ignore me. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, dude. If you cannot mentally function without some amount in your safety fund, then by all means, get that bag so you can feel more secure, and then also spend some of it on therapy. Because I've been there, and it turns out that only more therapy and not more money can ever help you feel truly secure in this world. This is all to say, passion or stability, there is no right choice. The important part is to act and not be paralyzed by indecision between the two. And to also be willing to change paths in the future if you feel like you're losing your passion for your passion, or your stability becomes so stable it's soul-sucking. And it's this part, the changing of seasons between passion and stability, that is the hard part. If you start with stability, you'll get accustomed to a certain level of stability in your life that you'll have to intentionally turn away from. That's emotionally and mentally debilitating. But if you start with passion, you'll watch all of your friends who stuck it out a little bit longer than you finally achieve success, and you'll wonder whether you would have achieved that same level of success had you just stuck it out a little bit longer while you sit at your desk job. That's also emotionally and mentally debilitating. So the real question, I think, isn't between passion or stability. Both are necessary for life. The question really is, will you be brave enough to choose a path and brave enough to switch? And that's it for this week, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. And also you can head on over to my Substack where you can view all my essays in written form, as well as gain access to bonus content. Love you guys so much and see you next time. Mwah.